yourself on a crusade. Tattoo the Earth.
What is up, podheads? Tony here. Podioslave Tattoos the Earth rolls on. Episode 3 coming at you in your ears right now. I'm here, as always, with Anthony and Nate. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Ready to geek out as always. And this series has just been an absolute fucking blast. So honored. I'm honored to geek out as always, but especially with this. It's the grand prize. It's the cream of the crop. It's our personal nerdery summer camp.
I agree. And I'm personally doing pretty good. My memory sucks, which is the opposite. I don't know if you guys have noticed how detailed all our guests have been. Like, how the fuck do they remember
Oh my God.
all these details from 22 years ago? Like, when you asked me that, I was like, how am I? Like, how was my day? I don't remember.
Yeah, did I lock the car? Fuck. Like,
Oh, dude, I lock the cars like twice a night before bed, especially after last summer when ours got robbed and I was recording in Twan's basement. So...
Yeah, I mean, so if you're back from last week, we had Derek Green of Sepultura last week. We had Myron from the Workhorse Movement. And Myron, you could tell he hadn't been down this memory jog for a long time. But for a dude that probably hadn't thought about those days in a while, he remembered a ton. And it was awesome. And I'm sure Scott's book helped with that. And, you know, kind of the rebirth, the festival all helped with that. But, man, I'm personally impressed.
For sure. I mean, they've been awesome in their candor and their stories. They've been their memory has been amazing. To call back to 22 years ago, a summer where they probably were by the skin of their teeth surviving day to day, and to pull all these memories out and give them to us, give this story out there as Podioslave Tattoos the Earth. Man, it's been a blast. And like Nate said, it's our nerdery summer camp and something that we never thought we'd be able to do, but we're happy we're doing it, and we're happy you're here with us to check it out. So we've got some fun stuff for you tonight. Who we got tonight, Twan?
So we're going to start things off with Shannon Larkin. So Shannon currently, for the last, 20 plus years, has been the drummer for Godsmack. During the Tattoo the Earth tour, he was with the band Amen. Before that was Ugly Kid Joe. And then the back half of this episode, we bring back our friend Brian Fair. We kind of teased that last week. He was originally in Overcast, went on to join Shadows Fall. He's now in Hell Night. And Overcast is playing the Resurrection here next month. Actually, this month, right? Later this month, August 27th in Worcester, Mass. So, yeah, great conversations, great company. These guys get stories for fucking days, and you're going to hear them right now. Here's Shannon Larkin, formerly of Amen, now of Godsmack.
what's up, Shannon? Thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man. My pleasure.
Nice, man. We did have a question right out of the gate. You know, we're stoked to have you on and everything, but I feel like you've been on just so many different kinds of music. You know, our podcast prides on, you know, just different styles of music. We kind of cover everything. You know, you're in Ugly Kid Joe, you're in Stone Sour, Glassjaw, Candlebox, Amen, all these amazing bands. But we got to ask, like, does your accountant ever do like a double take? Like when your, you know, royalty checks come in and they see, you know, holy shit, you're in Godsmack, but wait, Vanilla Ice? Like, which employer, who do you work for?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I've been in 4 bands my whole life. And my first band was Wrathchild America.
Yep.
My second band was Ugly Kid Joe. My third band was Amen. My fourth band was Godsmack. And that's been ever since I was 14, I started Wrathchild, and I toured all the way up till we signed to Atlantic. I was 21. And then Ugly Kid, Amen, Godsmack. And that's the 4 bands. The thing is about me is I never stop. I live for music is God to me. And so I always have side projects, even like every band I've been with that I just mentioned, I had sometimes 2 side projects. Like when I was in California in Amen, I did a rockabilly band called Back Alligators, and I had a punk band called MF Pitbulls. And so with this band, Godsmack, I've had Another Animal was an early record I put out with Wick Crane of Ugly Kid Joe and Godsmack guys. And then I've had the Apocalypse Blues review, and now it's the Apocalypse Blues revival. And so, you know, I always keep busy. The Glassjaw, the Vanilla Ice, the Stone Sour, these were all just because I'm friends with people. And
Nice.
if I have time off and they call me and say, hey, man, you know, like at the time it was Ross Robinson, and that got me probably my best drum record, perhaps, on the Glassjaw record, you know. That thing is a monster. I don't know why that didn't sell 10 million copies. I mean, I listened to that just the other day because I'm getting my chops back up, and that's one of the things. That's one of the records I'll put on to get back into shape
Nice.
on the drums, man. But yeah, so only 4 bands I've been with. You know, if you talk to like Josh Freeze, that dude's only been in 3 or 4 bands. You know, he's in Vivo. He was in Perfect Circle. He is the Vandals, of course, still and was forever. But God, at one point, I had talked to him and he said, you know, because he'll do a session, one song, and he doesn't even hear the vocal. And all of a sudden, at one point, he had played drums on 9 of the 10 songs in the top 10.
Wow. That's crazy.
Just from doing sessions. And he's like, whoa, oh my God. And then he'll hear the song and he's like, I never heard the hook or the vocals even, you know? So, you know, it's staying busy, man. You know, us drummers have to stay busy. We don't make money like the rest of y'all do.
Well, yeah, we agree with the Glassjaw Worship and Tribute being a beast. We love that record. We ride for that record here for sure.
Yeah, that dude, oh my God, dude. Ross Robinson called me, and Amen had just put our second record. I think it was our second one in the can. Yeah. Because the Candlebox thing, well, I'll go back. The Candlebox thing happened when we just finished recording our first record, Amen, in the year 2000. And Candlebox had just released their third record, Happy Pills. And Candlebox manager was John Reese, who also managed Amen. And now John Reese does, oh my God, he's a huge like concert promoter, man, you know, and a dear friend. Hi, John, if you ever see this. So John called me and we just got the Amen record in the can. So Reese calls me and says, hey man, I guess, you know, Candlebox's drummer at the time, the great, by the way, Dave Cruzen, I guess flaked on him and took off like 2 weeks before the tour. And since we had just recorded the record, there was a 3-month setup that the label needs and management, they need, you know, before you put the record out. So I basically had 3 months off, and he was my manager. He knew it. He said, hey man, you want to go and meet the Candlebox guys and like, you know, audition to go on tour with them for the next 2 months and for X amount and all this. And I'm like, hell yeah. And, you know, I liked Candlebox. I saw him with Rush. But
wow, that's a combo.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, man. So I went and got that Candlebox thing. But anyway, so flash forward, and so like I was never in Candlebox. You know, I went out and played on tour with those guys, and to this day they're dear friends. That was amazing. Anyway,
Nice.
Flash forward to Amen's second record. By this point, we're on Virgin, and Ross Robinson had done an imprint label with Virgin, right? And so same thing happened, man. I get done that record, and I had a couple months off for the setup of the record. And I was free, and Ross Robinson was also the producer of the Glassjaw record, you know. So there it was, man, just because I knew. So he calls me, and that was an odd thing because their drummer, they didn't want to get rid of their drummer. And he just couldn't, I guess, get through all the songs without having to stop. And so Ross had to cut all this tape. And by the end of the day, they wasted a week in the studio, which is money. And they were on Warner Brothers. So God knows, it was some studio in LA. So it was expensive, you know? And so Ross calls me and says, yeah, man, you know, they're not getting rid of their drummer or anything, but will you come and jam this record? And I go, well, you know, I knew Glassjaw anyway. I didn't know them personally, but I like Glassjaw, and they're fucking badass. So I was like, well, how much time do I have and how many songs, you know? And he's like, well, you know, can you learn these 10 songs in a week? And I was like, hell yeah. And so anyway, he sent me those songs, and I went down there, and Ross is a guy that likes to record drums in a small room. In fact, when we did the Amen second record, we went into Sound City.
Oh,
you know,
nice.
And I put my drums right where Dave Grohl, right in they have this giant famous drum room, man. And I put my drums right where Dave Grohl's drums were and right where Mick Fleetwood's drums, whatever. And fucking Ross ends up going, yeah, no, and we moved the drums into one of the guitar rooms, in a small room. So anyway, he did the same thing in Glassjaw, and next thing you know, but he wanted live. He didn't want me to stop, you know, get through the take, you know, and without mistakes. So that was the deal. And those dudes, that singer, but that what I can't even say enough about that. The whole band. Well, first, let me say the awkward part. So when I show up to rehearse the thing after the week I had to learn it, the drummer's there, right? The dude, like their guy. And I'm like, hey, you know? And then he's sitting literally right behind me while we're rehearsing. Yeah, you know, if you have any questions, whatever. And you know, it was an odd thing, you know, like he took me aside and, you know, you heard my drum tracks, but, and I was like, dude, they sound great to me. I'm not a fucking producer, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But, and on the other hand, it was weird. So anyway, thank God, the next day when I came in, I had, then we had 2 days, I think, I was to do that record. And he wasn't there when, you know, when I had to record. So Ross puts us in a small room, you know, so the band, basically, they're like standing around the drum set, you know, a foot away from the drum set. And the singer, Daryl, was like right over the kick drum. Like, and he would lean, that dude was leaning up over the kick drum, he screams. And his voice projects so loud. Mm-hmm. It was the most intense record maybe I ever recorded, man. And Ross was also in the room. So it wasn't just those 4 guys, it was Ross too, all just looking at me, man. And it was just I was looking back at them and it was such a fucking moment, dude. It's no wonder that's a fucking great record. Those guys were, I think, in their prime right then, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not going to, I mean, honestly, we could do a whole episode with you on that album. But last thing I'll say about that album, the drums are just absolutely brilliant. The fills at the beginning of Radio Cambodia and like the tribal element on Aptos Mill and Trailer Park Jesus, it's like, damn. And that was you. Like, we didn't know that for years that it was you.
Well, let me say this and check and make sure that the world or whoever sees this, the whole world's going to watch these guys.
Right.
Totally.
But whoever sees this knows that guitar player, Becker, he wrote all those drums.
Oh, wow.
Because, man, some of those fucking beats were I was like, how the hell? Because they don't want double pedal either. So it's all single bass. And I was like, wait a minute, that sounds like that when it goes, it sounds like it goes digga digga bap. Yes. And so, and that dude, and I was going, how, show me this. I need somebody to show me how you play that, how the drummer played this. And he goes, well, I wrote it. And he sat down, Becker, that's his name. Beck, I called him. So he also wrote, not only did he write all those songs and Daryl wrote the lyrics, you know, and the melodies or whatever, but Beck wrote 90% of the music and all those drum beats, all those sick ass drum beats weren't from my brain. Unfortunately, I'd love to claim that. My ego would love it. But my God, man, that dude, and he would sit down and play it. And I looked at him, I go, why don't you just track this record? Why would you call me in? And he's like, dude, I don't know how to hit the fucking drums. I can write beats like this, sick ass beats and all, but I don't hit the drums. I'm not a drummer. I play guitar, you know? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's about the Glassjaw thing. And that's the honest truth. That dude Beck is a genius.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think we're 20 minutes in. Let's hop into the Tattoo the Earth stuff.
This is awesome. This is awesome.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we would do this. Yeah, we could do this all night. All right. So let's flash back to 99, 2000. You said Amen had finished their first record, and you're getting ready to go on tour with Tattoo the Earth. So that was just you guys finished the record, and you hear about this tour and get tossed on the second stage and get going. How did that come about?
Well, it came about because when we signed to Roadrunner, Amen, Ross Robinson, again, he's the genius that found Korn and Limp Bizkit and started the whole, they called it new metal scene or whatever. But, Ross is a jack of all trades and he's just a cool cat. That's all he is. So he discovered the Amen thing, which was hardcore punk. And he also discovered another little band called Slipknot. And so he signed Slipknot and Amen as the first 2 bands on his imprint called I Am Records. And he did the deal with Roadrunner, which at the time didn't have Slipknot or Nickelback. And so Roadrunner was still an independent label at that point. And so Ross does a deal. Amen, we go independent with Ross and this other band, Slipknot. And he took us right to Malibu at the studio. It burned down. But back in the day, it's where Korn made their records and Limp Bizkit. And so there's this famous studio in Malibu. And it also had like a house that the bands could stay at, right?
Nice.
And so Slipknot, all 9 of them, the original Slipknot, show up 2 days early. They drove across the country in their van or whatever.
Wow.
And they show up to the studio. And by the way, I should mention, as soon as Amen was done, Ross was just staying there and Slipknot was moving in to do their first album. So right when we weren't even done, we had 2 more days of scrambling to finish this fucking record before Slipknot comes. Well, they show up 2 days early. And those dudes, we were all in our, I don't know, party prime perhaps. And it ended up being a shit show for those 2 days, man. And we fell in love. And so they came out, we came out, we sold 5 copies, they sold 5 million copies, and they fucking took us under their wing, man. And they took us all over. We played the world with Slipknot from, I don't care where, Australia, you're all over Europe. As the bigger they got, the bigger they took us. And so Slipknot, their first headlining festival tour was Tattoo the Earth, and that's why they were supposed to be on Ozfest. You read the book, but I talked to Naomi about it more, and she was telling me, well, yeah. So anyway, that was their first headliner, and that's how we got on that show. We probably wouldn't have been on that if it weren't for Slipknot saying, Amen's coming,
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And when the first tour, when Slipknot, their rise, it happened, people say fast, but it really took about 2 years. And the first American tour we did the lineup was Amen, Slipknot, second on the bill, Machine Head, Cold Chain.
Oh, wow. That's stacked. Wow. That's crazy.
But by the end of the tour, fucking Slipknot, and they were going second, and everybody was just like leaving after Slipknot. You know what I mean? Crazy. Wow. They're great. Anyway.
So on Tattoo the Earth, so you knew Slipknot going into Tattoo the Earth. Did you know any of the other bands just from touring, or? Oh
man, yeah. I've known Morgan and Seven Dust since. I knew everybody. I knew because Roy Mayor was a drummer, I think, from Soulfly on that tour. Maybe was it Soulfly or Sepultura? I can't remember.
Yep. I've
done a lot of them, but I knew Slayer. I know Kerry King. And I've had many crazy cool times with Kerry King back in the day, I freaked out with my girlfriend. We were in England with Godsmack just in 2019 doing a festival, and Slayer, they were making their last final run. I got to see them in England, their last time they ever played England. But, and it was broad daylight, we were standing outside, they have like trailers backstage, and that's the dressing room area is a bunch of like trailers at this festival. And so I'm standing out front of my trailer, smoking or whatever, and I look over at my girlfriend and goes, oh my God, there's Kerry King. I go, what? And I started walking up to, what the fuck are you doing? I go, I'm going to say hi to Kerry King. And she looks so scared, people think, because he looks like, what I mean? He's not a smiling man, but he's the coolest fucking guy. So anyway, I knew Slayer, and I knew Paul Bostaph too. I love Paul Bostaph. He's a great dude. Who else was on it? And I'll tell you if I knew him.
Oh boy, the original. You said Seven Dust. You said Sepultura guys. You said Slayer,
Slipknot, Hatebreed.
Yep.
Hatebreed. Love and no Hatebreed. Yes, Amen tour with Hatebreed, Jamie Josta. I knew every fucking body on that tour, man. That's why I don't remember it, because all we did was drink and do drugs. That was in the peak of my drug and drink usage was Tattoo the Earth, man. And we play and it was like 110 degrees every day. And of course we were on the, parking lot stage most of the time, literally at 2, 3 in the afternoon, and it was always 110 degrees, and so I would wake up, an hour before the show and just stumble the stage. It was crazy. That tour was crazy. Mm-hmm. I had so much fun. I just wish I could remember more of it.
Yeah.
It was like an adult summer camp with no chaperone. You're in your party prime. You got all these friends that are musicians. Just what a free-for-all.
And tattoo artists everywhere. And I happen to like tattoos. Most of us did. Mm-hmm. So there was tattoo artists everywhere. And, oh, my God, reading the book and then speaking more in depth to Naomi, I didn't realize all the drama, man, that was going on in that whole camp. It was kind of separate, the bands and the artists, the tattoo artists, But I do know that we got a lot of tattoos. And I watched both Corey, the singer of Slipknot, and also Ryan from Mudbang. Mudbang was another band I was friends with that was on that tour. And I watched Ryan get two tattoo artists, standing over him doing his chest, one doing a half, and Corey did the same shit. I'm not sure which one did it first or whatever, but two dudes over him, man, doing one tattoo on the chest too. I was like, y'all, it's crazy.
Yep. That kind of leads me into the tattoo piece. Like, obviously we've chronicled it on this series, but in 2000, tattoos and rock music went together, but tattoos in the mainstream weren't a thing. It's since sprung up all over the place with different, festivals and one-off dates and stuff. But in 2000, going out on tour with both, metal music and tattoos, this was unheard of.
Yeah, it was the first and then the last. I mean, I'm sure they did it again. Somebody's done it, but yeah, it was an awesome thing. Like I said, most of the bands that I knew had tattoos, and I've been getting tattoos since I was, the week I turned 18, I got my first tattoo because my parents wouldn't let me get them until I was 18 or whatever. But it was because of Bon Scott, and I always wanted to look like Bon Scott, so I got my first couple tattoos, and yeah. And back then, even, man, I was 18 and like 19. I'm 55, so I was 18 and like, I don't know, 87, 88. And when I got tattooed, man, like I had a tattoo on my arm, people would look at you funny and different, man, because back then, like Motley Crue wasn't out with the all covered tattoo sleeves. And, it wasn't the dudes you'd see with tattoos were like Bon Scott or Lemmy had a couple,
Right.
And so, and then everybody else was prisoners and thugs and fucking bikers, And so I was early on the tattoo game, in my life. And, thank God, because as I get older, they hurt more and more. So I'm glad I got the majority of the work young and drunk, I've been sober. By the way, guys, I talk about these drinking and drugs. I'm very open about that shit, but I haven't had a drink in 6.5 years.
Amazing.
Nice. That's
awesome. That's a huge
awesome.
accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I wish I didn't have to do that, but there you have it.
Yeah.
The sad, no one wants to see rock stars in rehab, right? Oh, man. Yeah, what a tour. I can't believe they never did another one. And I can't believe reading that book about the whole drama of the Sharon Osbourne and all that, man. I didn't know any of that. That's crazy, man. You don't mess with Sharon fucking Osbourne, right? I mean,
Stepping on her turf a little bit, right?
yeah, man.
So it sounds like it lived up to your expectations.
Oh, it's far beyond. Yeah. I still have my Tattoo the Earth hat that I wear doing yard work and stuff. Cause it's like a green big brim hat, Tattoo the Earth on it.
Nice.
And, it just lasted in my closet for, God, it must've been 20 years ago. I don't know.
Wow.
I've been in Godsmack 20 years. So 25 years. How long ago was that?
22 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So Shannon, you were in bands for almost 2 decades before then. You've been in bands 2 decades after then. How does that tour stack up?
Like I said, it was a time in my life that I was being a punk. I was just into punk, and we lived like punk rock, and we were like, fuck the world. That whole drug cut ourselves. It was a mess. We were a mess, but we're all fun and good people. So it was we didn't really step on anybody's toes, in our fucked upness, but so Tattoo the Earth, it would stack really high in my memory because I survived it.
Yeah.
But as far as the bands go, we just named off. I mean, if you're talking Slayer, Slipknot, Mudvayne, Seven Dust, Amen, Sepultura. I mean, come on. It was a fantastic tour for underground and alternative heavy music, And at the time that, the Ozfest and shit was happening and starting to come out, that was a cutting edge tour, man. And I'm proud to this day to be a part of that, I can't believe they put a picture of me in the book. I was like, fucking A. You know, the drummer, you think it'd be Casey Chaos screaming or whatever, but they put a picture of me in it. That was really nice, you know, of him to do. And
Yeah,
Scott's,
I think we're going to use that picture for this episode.
Yeah.
you can't see me, you know, it's just hair and bones, but, you know, but the thing is you know, Scott put me in it, and I love Scott for that. And he's a hell of a writer. He wrote, I swear, I read that book in 2 days. You know,
Nice.
I opened it, I couldn't stop reading it, and you know, and I was there, and I didn't know all that drama was going on around me, around my tornado of a band.
Man.
Well, Scott speaks highly of you because he was like, you got to have Shannon. Shannon needs to be part of this. So
Yep.
glad we got to talk to you about it, for sure.
So Shannon, during the Tattoo the Earth tour, which was in 2000, there was an album that dropped in 2000, which was the Straight Up album, the tribute to Lynn Straight. So that dropped November 7th, 2000. And you played on it with Seven Dust, Head PE, Slipknot, all that stuff. But it kind of boggles our mind. Were you guys recording that stuff on the tour? Did you get off tour and record it right away? Because it dropped right away. I can imagine they had needed time to master that thing.
Yeah, well, you know, we were, I was in Snot there, Jamie Miller, the great Jamie Miller, who's Bad Religion's drummer now. I found that guy in Baltimore, Maryland, and put him in my band, MF Pitbulls. I sang for this punk band back in the day. And we had a record deal. I was, you know, drumming for Wrathchild, singing for this Pitbulls band, and saw Jamie. He was in a band called Mary Suicide. Anyway, it was a side project at first. Then we got a deal with Roadrunner, right? Well, at the same time, I met Wick Crane, and he said, come, dude, come to Santa Barbara, live in Santa Barbara, and join Ugly Kid Joe. And so then I faced the dilemma, do I want to be a singer, which I'm not. If it's punk rock, I scream out of key. Or do I want to continue my drumming thing, which I did. So I went to California. I broke up the Pitbull, but I promised Jamie Miller and Toomer and Sonny Mayo that I would fucking hook them up. And so when I got to Santa Barbara, Whitfield took me over to the Snot house. Snot was this new band. They hadn't even played one show yet, but They had a house. And so I went over to the Snot house, and I happened to have a Bad Brain shirt on, and that was Lynn's favorite band. So Lynn came right up to me, and I ended up hitting it off, really getting tight with Lynn Straight, right? And so he's like, dude, you should join Snot. And I was like, I just joined Ugly Kid Joe, dude. I can't join your band.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I go, however, I have, and at the time, by the way, Snot's drummer and bass player weren't that great, man. You know what I mean? I hate to say it, but that's the deal. But Lynn Straight and Mikey Doling had this star fucking shit. Even back in the day, they just had this shit. And so I was like, I got the band for you. I used to sing for this band. The drummer, the bass player, and the guitar player are fantastic. Anyway, I showed them video of Pitbulls, you know, and of course, they flew to California, joined Snot, and within 7 months were signed to Geffen. You know what I mean? They took LA quick. You know, System of a Down used to open for them, all this shit. They came up quick. And so Jamie Miller wasn't happy playing that kind of music, I guess, or whatever. And I think a lot of it had to do with he wanted to play guitar at the time, you know, maybe with his girlfriend's band, Amy Echo. And anyway, Lynn called me again, you know, come do the record. And I had just made another record with Amen. And he said, look, you don't have to quit Amen. Just play on this record, and then we'll let the dice tumble. And whichever one, if we're big, then come join my band. And I said, all right. So anyway, me, Mikey, Sonny Mayo, and Mikey Doling went into the studio and wrote all those songs with Lynn. Wow. And then the day we demoed them all musically, and Lynn would just sit there with his notepad writing lyrics, and he wasn't even there much during the writing of the music, or he would just come in. Anyway, by the time we got it done, and Sonny Mayo wasn't there that day, but it was me and Toomer and Mikey Doling. And we were waiting for Lynn to come and start singing on the new songs. And his mom called, and Mikey Doling picked the phone up, and we got the news. He'd been killed on his way, there. And so at that point, God, I don't even know how to go into that, but it was fucked. And then, but we had all these great songs that Lynn Straight liked. And so we figured, why not do a tribute? And everyone was hurt by his death, everyone. And so it was an easy thing for us to just call all of, like, you know, Jonathan, and every singer on there were friends with Lynn, you know, so except for one. One wasn't, and just did it for with respect and love or whatever. But every other dude was like personal friends with Lynn anyway. And so it was an easy thing. That's why it came out so fast. It was so easy to do. We already had written all the songs. And so we went in and recorded them all in like 3 or 4 days. And then, you know, the longest part was trying to get the scheduling together for all the star singers to come in and sing these songs, you know. Anyway, so that's how that whole thing went down, and we did. We got it out really quick, and you know, I got to play every song on it except for Angel's Son, because Morgan personally called me and said, "Dude, can I play one song? Can I play this song that we helped?" Wow. And I said, "Fuck yeah, of course." And you know what's fucked though for me is that's the one song that became the single,
right?
And they made a video. So the one fucking song I didn't play on became the single on video, and they played. I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah. But anyway, I know Lynn's smiling though. I mean, you know what I mean? That record was great. Dez did great on it. Everybody did great on it, you know?
That's an awesome record.
It's a snapshot that captures really a moment, and a special moment too, and quite the cast there. And a lot of you guys were on that tour. It was a snapshot in time.
Yeah, man. And, you know, Jonathan Davis came in, and I met him a couple of times, but I hadn't really hung out, and I certainly hadn't seen how he works. And you know, it was the coolest thing. He had basic ideas and some scratched some lyrics down, but he sat in front of a piano and he started playing the notes he was going to sing. Bang, dang, 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 right? And then he gets on the mic, he goes, "It's so fucked. I am here doing this." And I had tears in my eyes, you know?
Wow.
And then he goes, "It's bullshit. Things don't end like this." And I was like, motherfucker, that was a horrible, horrible tragedy, you know, that ended up making something great out of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like it's hard. That's a hard one, you know, to talk about really, because Lynn was so special and everybody loved Lynn, man. Yeah. He was one of those dudes, you know what I mean? And he had that thing, and it was just fucking senseless, you know? But there you have it.
Man,
thank you.
That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. That to share that, and obviously it's still to this day means something to you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, every single record that I've done, you know, all the partying and joking aside about partying and how fucked up I was back in the day or whatever, you know, I never forget. Whenever I played and whenever I make records, I'm straight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I'm done, the red light goes off, then I'd go drink and get fucked up. But, you know, and so I remember everything. I remember all the records. I can remember the first studio I was ever in at 15 years old, making, you know, with Wrathchild, doing our first demo, you know. So that's one good thing.
Absolutely.
And you're still a beast too. You are still a beast, man.
Oh, thank you, man.
Shannon, thank you for joining us on this retrospective of the 2000 Tattoo the Earth and your time playing with Amen, and then, you know, all the other stuff that we get tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for getting this out to the people, man. They got to know about this crazy tour and read Scott's book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Read Scott's book, because, man, what an interesting, cool story, written in a way that, you know, makes you want to keep turning the pages, man. It's a classic. So thanks for having me, guys. And, you know, I wish I could be at Tattoo the Earth, but I'll be close. So I'll be there in spirit, you know. And hopefully they'll do a tour. You know, we are putting a new record out. I can say that much. Godsmack. It's going to come out soon. So who knows? Maybe we'll end up fucking on Tattoo the Earth or something. Who knows?
That'd be awesome.
One can hope.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks again.
All right, guys. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. Appreciate it, man. Man, another great recollection of amazing and chaotic stories from Shannon Larkin of Amen and now Godsmack. What a blast. And now we got a former guest, Brian Fair. We kind of call him a homie of the podcast now. He jumped on with us to kind of talk about the resurrection of Tattoo the Earth. Just more amazing backstory and just geekery on everything music. So we're going to get into it right now with Brian Fair.
All right, Brian. Good to see you again. It's been about seven months since we talked last.
Yeah.
What have you been up to, man?
Pretty much working, chasing kids, and now trying to get my ass back in shape for some Overcast and Shadows Fall shows. It went from nothing on the schedule to just a ton of things happening. So, but all good things. So, but now I got to get ready, man. So I did a quick dry run through on my commute to work on the Overcast set. And I got to say, man, jumping back into Overcast mode is not quite as easy as like Shadows Fall was such a thing I did for, so long. And there's a lot more syllables and anger in the Overcast stuff, man. So like, I was definitely a young gun when I was writing that shit. So yeah, I gotta start stepping up the cardio and getting the throat back into that mode. So yeah, I was commuting to work and trying to run through some of the Overcast set, and almost had a aneurysm on my way there. So
dude. Don't do that. Don't do that.
But I'm getting there, man. And it was fun to run through those songs. Like, honestly, I didn't probably listen to some of that stuff in a while. So it was cool to kind of dust it off and kind of get familiar again with some songs that haven't played in a minute. So I'm stoked though, man. I'm super psyched.
Nice.
It's funny. We had you on back in December. So we've interviewed a ton of people since then. And whenever we talk about COVID and return to shows, we always reference, well, Brian told us he was doing lunges in his laundry room.
I'm in that laundry room now, although I'm behind my drum kit. So, but right over there, that's where I just sweat and yell and jump around like an idiot. So yeah, it's funny, man. I hadn't done a serious, kind of high intensity interval, workout in a while like that. And my hamstrings were screaming, man, where I'm just walking around my house and my wife's just like, what are you doing? I'm like, getting back in game mode, man. Gotta get the lunges going. So
I love it. Yeah, you've been our go-to question for everybody.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta film it this time around because it's gotta look ridiculous, man. It's got just sitting here sweating to the oldies, by myself. So
I love it.
Hey, if you want to do an exclusive through us, we'll put up a paywall.
There you go, man. Exactly.
So, Brian, like we said, we last chatted with you. It was the reunion of Shadows Fall. Now, Overcast is playing a few shows, right? There's one that was just announced today.
Yeah, we, if we were going to get together and kind of dust off these songs, we wanted to at least play a full weekend. I would have even liked to do some more, but logistically, I'm amazed we pulled this off. So, yeah, we just booked Brooklyn the Friday before, then Tattoo the Earth, and then Albany on that Sunday. So nice weekend of kind of tri-state rock and roll.
So yeah, you get the call to get back together for the Tattoo the Earth show first, or was this something that was on the back burner?
Yeah, no, we hadn't had any plans to do any Overcast stuff. And Scott Lee hit me up and was like, hey man, what's the chance of Overcast getting together? And I was like, it'll be tough, but what do you got in mind? And he told me Tattoo the Earth, and I already saw the initial lineup, which was, Anthrax, Black Label, Hatebreed, At the Gates. I mean, I'm like, we're in. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'll call the guys, make sure, but we're in. And so everyone, thankfully, Mike wasn't on tour with Killswitch and had a window that time. The other guys were all in. The only thing that we had to kind of adjust on the fly was Scott McCoo, our original rhythm guitar player, was unable to do it, but gave us, was like, don't miss this opportunity. Right. Find someone to help out. So luckily we were, we had a few guys in mind, so we were able to kind of scramble and work that out. Which it'll be weird not have. He'll probably actually be at one of the shows, but couldn't do all of them and couldn't play. So that'll be a kind of just strange for us, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity, and he was totally wanted us to follow through with it, so it all worked out. So
nice. So if that call didn't happen, Tattoo the Earth didn't happen, was this kind of lingering in the background, let's get the band back together, or no?
We never shut the door. We all of us, we have a text loop that we all stay in touch with. It's usually just stupid things we're sending each other, or inside jokes that have been, are 30 years old now at this point. But so we always kind of if time allows, if everyone's on the same page and there's a good opportunity, we've tried to take it whenever we can. It's just, it is pretty tough to get everybody where everyone has the same free time and all that.
Right.
So, but they were on it, but at the time, absolutely no plans. You know, it was definitely kind of out of the blue, and but an opportunity we wouldn't want to miss. Not only would it be super fun to get together and play like this, to be on that bill, it was just amazing. And then that led to us, you know, just knowing like, if we're going to do that, we're going to do at least a few shows. Yeah. But then also after this, hopefully if we're, you know, kind of rehearsed and got some stuff going on, if some other stuff comes up, we'll be a little more ready to kind of go if we haven't any opportunities. So we'll see. Right now, that's all we got booked is those 3 shows. There's no plans to do anything else, but we'll see what happens, you know, after that. So.
Nice. Yeah. So when we talked to you back in December, you were coming off of the reunion show at the Palladium for Shadows Fall, right? So when you did that, are there similarities between doing that and getting the Overcast stuff back together, or are there major differences, or what was it like doing both?
You know, there's definitely a difference. You know, Shadows Fall initially is just a little more melodic. There's a little more kind of traditional song structure, maybe ish. There's also, for me, there's a lot more guitar solos in the Shadows Fall stuff, so I get a lot more breaks. You know,
that's right. I've never.
Yeah, like the Overcast stuff is just relentless. And like I said, I wrote way too many syllables when I was young. Like trying to fit all that stuff in is crazy. It's also a different mind state because that was a much darker sort of. I don't want to say evil because we weren't evil guys, but like the lyrics get pretty dark and deep. The ones Mike D wrote in the early days get real dark. He was, I don't know what was going on in that guy's mind, but there was some demons in there he had to get out. But so it is a little bit of a dynamic shift there. Whereas, you know, the Shadows Fall stuff is a little more like, you know, positive and inspirational and even a little more epic where there's, you know, like it's just a different state of mind. And just for me though, like, yeah, I've been away from the Overcast material for just significantly longer as well. So just to get back in that mode, which, you know, it doesn't take long, you know, those songs are kind of ingrained in my DNA, but I just had to kind of awaken the beast, you know, and get back in there. So.
Well, you almost have the luxury of benefiting from a small catalog. Where Shadows Fall, it's like, all right, you know, which era of the band are we going to pull from? Where Overcast, it's just a couple of releases, right?
Totally. Yeah. That was the hardest part of the Shadows Fall reunion was we were playing a pretty long set, longer than we normally do. And we still were struggling to fit everything in we wanted to. And we had to cut some stuff out that, you know, we wanted to play because you want to play stuff that people want to hear, but we also want to play the stuff that we really want to play. And you got to balance those things. With Overcast, you know, we got 2 full lengths and then some EPs. So it's a little bit easier to pick. And the thing is, we were lazy even back in the day where some of our LPs and EPs have the same songs. So
of course, you got to do that.
It was 90s hardcore. You just re-record stuff. That's what you did, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, so a little bit easier to get set lists together. And I'm glad we're doing the other shows because then our set at Tattoo the Earth is decent length. But on the 2 headlining sets, we can at least add a few more things that we were, you know, going to have to to for that. So that'll be cool to kind of bring some of the, you know, some of the other tunes in.
So speaking of Tattoo the Earth, you going to be at the show in August on the 27th, Saturday at Palladium Outdoors in Worcester. What do you know about the original Tattoo the Earth? You heard stories?
Oh yeah, you know, because a lot of our friends were on that, and I remember the initial seeing like the lineup being like that was kind of the first of those early steamroller festivals that was like letting the like underground bands on and having the fun, you know, because like we were one of the bands that like us and Hatebreed kind of broke through the Ozfest one on that, but Tattoo the Earth was ahead of the game where they're like, yo, we're bringing the heavy hitters. This is about true underground heavy stuff, which was super cool. That was such a cool approach to it. But also on a bigger scale too, you know, bringing in some of the bands, whether it was, you know, Slipknot or whoever, bringing some bigger stuff too. But that's what I always loved about it. It seemed like it was really about showcasing that sound as opposed to, you know, the new metal sound or whatever. It definitely had a much more underground feel, a little more raw. It didn't feel as corporate back then either, you know, so it's cool. Plus, you know, hardcore heavy metal and tattoos kind of go hand in hand. So, you know, it's kind of a perfect mix. So, but I was surprised to see they were bringing it back because, you know, it wasn't like it had been a few years since the last one, you know, like it was definitely a long layoff. So which is cool. Although that's been happening with a few of the things we've been involved in. Furnace Fest took, you know, over a decade break between stuff and then came back a couple of years ago. And Shadows Fall is going to be part of that this year. So I guess I get to be involved in a few of the resurrected fests these days.
Hell
so
yeah.
that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah. One thing that because we didn't get to go to the original Tattoo the Earth. We actually talked about it on a previous episode. We like tried to get rides there because we didn't have our license, or I think we had a permit, but we heard about the stories because the Boston date was Suffolk Downs, which, you know, unconventional venue. And then you hear about other venues that are in a golf dome, and there's like pressure controlled, and there's like a sandstorm in Arizona. It was very much of the time and very like anti like Live Nation-esque.
Totally. Which is also why you end up in those places like that have, you have pressurized golf domes and sandstorm parking lots and whatnot. You had to do that because, Live Nation has that stranglehold, which was cool though. That was the time where people were trying to do things outside of that kind of built-in corporate structure of it. So it was cool to see. And it was also cool to see that it did those numbers that it did and what got as big as it was. Which was cool. But yeah, I'm sure logistically being on that probably wasn't as like, easy to pull off as some of the other ones because of those elements. But then when you survive, you got the war stories, like, you feel like you earned your shit through that,
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about that with some of the people behind the scenes back on episode 1, and it's crazy, man. Like, I know we wanted to go. It was, we live in Maine. It was a 2-hour drive, and, I think I was 16, but Anthony, you were 15. Like, we just didn't have a chance. Like, it just wasn't, no cars. Try to tell our parents we're going to some tattoo metal festival. Like, yeah, no, you're not leaving the state for that.
That didn't happen.
Yeah, totally. That was even the name. They're like, you're going to do what now? Like...
But hey, now we're talking about it. We've talked about it a lot this year, but we're talking about it in depth now, and we're getting to see bands like you, Overcast, come back together and play at the resurrected version of it in 2022. So that's pretty badass.
Yeah, I was really excited that it was at the outdoor Palladium setup because I've seen shows in that setup but never played one. I mean, I've played inside the Palladium in every way, shape, or form, but never gotten to do the outdoor thing. So that's going to be rad. Like, that venue is like a second home to me between, Overcast and Shadows Fall. So to have it happen there, to have the lineup it's got, man, it's just perfect. So I can't wait.
I love that. I mean, you just laid it out. Like, you found out it was Tattoo the Earth, kick-ass lineup, but you guys aren't the only ones that are playing. Would you call this a reunion or a comeback? Both, either one.
Yeah, kind of a comeback, I think, is probably a better word, because reunions make it seem like, everyone was on their own separate ways and not on the same page.
Right.
So, it's more, although I guess LL would tell you not to call it a comeback. So I don't know what to say, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you got you guys, the Red Chord, who hasn't played in a bit. They, one-offs here and there, and Bleeding Through as well in that same camp. Totally.
That's what's awesome. But I think, I think a lot of those bands are in the same kind of vibe as Overcast, where everyone's still in touch and friends and all that stuff. So it makes that stuff a little easier. But it is that was why this, like, we were going to find a way to pull it off. Like, all these bands are coming together to do something like this. We want to be a part of that, because like, it's not going to happen often where you're going to get these bands not only play at all, but at the same place. Like, that's such a rare thing. So I wasn't going to miss that opportunity. So.
Oh, and then you get all the extra stuff, right? They're going to have the body art and the tattoo artists, and it just sounds like it's going to be this wild day with, if you're bored of one thing or you want to check something else out, you can easily go over to this other place and do something completely different while music is still kicking ass in the background. So
that's what I love about events like this, man. It really does bring in other elements of the underground scene and just kind of gives other artists a showcase through that, and also maybe exposes some younger kids to some stuff that they may not know about. They're going to see like one band they're into, but then they find out, about this whole tattoo world and the whole body art world. And, it's such a cool thing. I'm already trying to think, I'm like, okay, what like memory tattoo am I getting like at the show, so it'll have to be small because I won't have a lot of time, I'll be running around, but something's got to happen. So.
It's funny though, like what you just said, like the idea of that 22 years ago would be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What the hell? And just culturally, right? Culturally, tattoos is just a whole different ball game.
Totally. Well, that's what's even weird now is like, I have so many friends who are high up in, like crazy big companies who are just sleeved out, even, hand tattoos, and like, none of that matters anymore, man. No. Whereas before you couldn't get a job at like, Starbucks with tattoos or whatever, right. Dunkin' Donuts, so like, it's crazy how that changed. So, but it also probably led to like, a lot of people going like super deep in who may look back and be like, shouldn't have started with the neck, maybe, you know,
or the
But, you
gauged
know,
ears, the gauged ears. Yeah.
man, that was such a time where I was like, I'd see these, you know, younger dudes and bands. I'm like, man, you better be lifers, because you all just like tattooed up your whole neck, and your lobes are gonna be hanging down to your ankles soon. So.
And they are. If they did it in 2000, they probably are today. That's why my parents didn't want me to go.
There you go. See, they knew you're gonna get gauged up and all tattooed. You're come back with like, you know, fuck the world on your knuckles or something, you know. Like,
Love and hate.
16-year-old me.
Yeah.
16-year-old me might have done that. That's for sure.
STR8 Edge.
Yeah, there you go.
So, talking about all the bands that are going to be there, is there anybody in particular you're excited to see? I know you're a music nerd like we are.
Yeah, you know, there's a ton. I'm excited to hang out with my boy Johnny Rock and Roll, who's playing in Anthrax, you know, before the Shad stuff. So it's always good to kick it with him. I haven't seen Zach Wilde since we did the Heavy Metal All Stars, which was this European tour that, like, dude, if you want stories about an insane trek around the world, that one's got them all.
We do.
I'll be stoked to see that, dude. Man, that tour, the fact that anyone survived and that we made it out of like some of the countries we did is just insane. We were in Turkey right when they shot down a plane from a neighboring country, and we're having an election. And our hotel's right on the side of the square where all of a sudden these tanks start pulling in. And we're like, well, what's going on? They're like, oh, we're having an election. We're like, well, why are the tanks? They're like, well, because they already know who won and none of us like it. And we're like, oh, we got to get the fuck out of here, man. Like, and the show got canceled and stuck into a DIY kind of like club that was, it was a club, but it was closed. So they basically just snuck us into this spot where, you know, watching Zach Wilde carry all his guitars up these like 30 flights of stairs to sneak into some club. And it was just insane, but it was a blast. So yeah,
these tanks are rolling down the street because we had an election. That's not good.
Yeah, totally. Like, and they're like, yeah, we already know who won, but what are you gonna do? But man, some of the shows were amazing. Like we did a couple shows in Russia that were crazy, but the promoters were about to like lose their mind because Vince Neil was supposed to show up and he didn't. And like, it was all insane.
Wow.
Yeah. But good times. But so I was psyched to see them. Super psyched to see Bleeding Through in the Red Corps, because we've used to tour with both of those bands a ton back in the day, but I haven't seen them in forever, so that'll be cool. And yeah, man, the lineup is stocked from top to bottom. You know, Terror is on there. I just forgot about that. I keep remembering different bands that are playing. It's crazy.
At the Gates. I've never seen At the Gates. And
Overcast was lucky enough to play with At the Gates on the Slaughter the Soul tour on 2 nights. It was Napalm Death, At the Gates, Overcast in Connecticut and New York. And the Connecticut show was awesome, but dude, there was like maybe 75 people there. Wow. You know, like people always like, they see that lineup, like people see that flyer and they're like, that must have been the most insane show. I'm like, it was, but no one was there. Like, you know, like At the Gates became the most influential band in the scene, like that era, but like people weren't going to like, you know, necessarily go to see them then. The next show was at the Wetlands in New York, which was packed, but it was a small club too. So it's crazy to think back then that like literally touring on one of the most game-changing records of all time, that there was literally like, you know, a handful of people coming out. And but it was awesome, man, because getting to see Thomas wearing a bright yellow Overcast shirt on stage while he was playing, I was like, that's so rad. Because like we were, you know, pretty metal, but we never looked the part. So seeing him like not only rocking yellow, but also having dreads almost as nappy as mine, and I'm like, see, we found our people, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Wait, so you guys printed yellow t-shirts?
Oh yeah, dude, Overcast was obnoxious with our merch. We had yellow shirts, purple shirts, way before it was like cool to do weird colors, like. And it's funny because, yeah, like people be like, that's rad. And we're like, well, how come you didn't buy it? Like, well, because I'm not going to wear a yellow shirt. And you're like, damn it. You know, like,
you were ahead of your time,
yeah,
man.
Maybe we outthought ourselves, but yeah,
eBay gold. eBay gold right now.
Totally. I mean, it's funny, man. I wish I lost like all my merch from back then, like, you know, along the way, or gave it away along the way. That was always the worst, thinking you could grab another one out of the bin later, and then all of a sudden they're all gone. And you're like, oh, I gave away all the cool yellow shirts.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was so getting to play with At the Gates back then was for us was as cool as it got, you know. So it was super rad. So I'm very excited to see them again.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's going to be a good time. I mean, we're really hoping to be around and bump into you at some point that day too. That's our plan anyway, is to be there.
Definitely, man.
be kicking around and taking some footage, hopefully a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff to get people, excited about the day and maybe chronicle it from a different angle. But yeah, man, we're stoked too.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible, man. I also like the diversity of the lineup. There's a lot of bands who came from the same kind of scene, but like everyone sounds very different, so that's what's cool. There's a very, very wide variety, which is rad. I always like that. Like I always like bills that aren't just, 3 or 4 bands that sound, similar. So it's that to me, like, man, if you can't get into this lineup, like, man, you then just get out of metal. Like, you're done. Mm-hmm. You're all done, son.
I'm stoked for Crowbar.
Yes,
I
there's
just
none
want
heavier,
headbang.
man.
I just want to I don't have the dreads to headbang, but I just want to headbang.
Dude, the last time I saw Crowbar, like, you forget sometimes how many riffs they have, because you're like, you literally will be like yourself, that's the heaviest riff I've ever heard, and then they start the next song and you're like, that's the heaviest riff I've ever heard. And it's just unrelenting. And what's great is most of that just comes out of Kurt's hands, man. Dude, when he touches anything, it's just heavy. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's not that they tune down to Z or do anything like that. That dude just riffs heavy, man. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm stoked for that.
So Brian, we need you to clear up a rumor for us.
Uh-oh.
Rumor has it, if you hang around the Palladium long enough, you will catch another Brian Fair reunion. So Death Ray Vision is next.
Yeah. Well, they're actually in the studio now. They've got a new singer, Keith, who used to play bass for Wrecking Crew, a classic Boston band, is singing with them now. So yeah, they're actually working on new material. I loved being in that band, but they really wanted to be kind of active, and just the 1,500-mile commute wasn't really working out for me to be able to do local gigs, but that would be rad. So, but I'm stoked that those guys are doing things. But it is funny, man. The Palladium, literally, if we weren't on tour and there was a show I was at the Palladium usually.
Oh yeah.
So, and I had the same spot at the back bar, like, a shout out to Maya, the bartender, was there for about 20 years. It was always, serving me tequila shots. So. But yeah, man, that's like literally feels like as comfortable as my living room. The Palladium is a second home.
That's awesome. Tony, do we have anything else?
I mean, we could go all night, but we
could, yeah.
I could bore you with Metal All-Star tour stories,
Well, if you got another one,
yeah. No, it was more if you guys could have just seen just how insane this was run. The promoter who put it on ended up being arrested on fraud charges, like right afterwards, and was literally on the run from the Texas Rangers and shit.
Oh, wow.
Literally, he had screwed over like Russian promoters. Like,
Ooh.
you don't do that, man. Like, it was crazy. So, but I'm pretty sure he's still in jail at this point. But man, it was crazy. Like, a bunch of us, I got paid the morning of my flight, because I was like, I'm not getting on this plane until that like hits my account, and a few people didn't, and they were trying to chase that for a while. I was like,
Ooh.
man, I wasn't getting on that plane, and it was a blast. Like, I had so much fun. Like, I got to like party with Udo on his birthday, and which, first of all, man, that dude closed down a bar like to the point where I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. He kept going and was the first guy up at 6 a.m, like drinking like espresso in the hotel lobby. And I'm like, Udo, how are you up? He's like, I'm professional. Like, just like
get on my level, basically. Yeah.
Totally, man. So getting to like just kick it with Udo and Max Cavalera and all those guys, it was an insane tour. But man, what a mess.
What year was that? What year was that?
What year is that? That was probably 2013 or 14.
Oh wow,
probably
so
14.
Recent. Wow.
Yeah. It was right towards the end of when Shadows Fall was winding down touring, and it was an awesome opportunity. It was super cool, but just logistically was just insane.
Yeah.
But man, and the shows were really like cool. Like, we did stuff where we would do usually 1 or 2 songs of your own band. I would do like 2 Shadows Fall songs, and then Bark at the Moon with Blasco on bass. So like Ozzy's bass player on bass. Yeah. And there was a rotating kind of group of musicians. And then we would do Raining Blood, and Max Cavalera would come out, and we'd do it as like a duet. And then I would come out during his set and do Eye for an Eye from Soulfly. And then that's how Zach Sabbath started, actually.
Oh, wow.
He was doing a 3-piece Sabbath thing where it was Blasco on bass, him on guitar, and this dude, Aaron Rossi, who played in Prong, Ministry, a bunch of other bands on drums. And he had so much fun doing that when he got back, he was like, this is the shit. Like, I'm gonna just do a 3-piece Sabbath thing, and that was the birth of Zach Sabbath. Wow. So what a crazy tour, man.
It's like a once in a lifetime thing, right? Because
without a doubt,
you never
totally.
did it again, right? Yeah.
No, and I think they tried to do a South American version or something, but then like the dude went to jail, so I think that kind of petered out the momentum on that one. But it was a great idea. And it's something I could see happening again, because metal musicians are so good at like jumping into other bands and learning other people's material, which always blows my mind when you see these guitar players be like, I had 2 days to learn all of like Suffocation stuff and just jump up there and do it. I'm like, I don't understand how that's possible. But so like we had dudes who were like learning songs that day and then going up there and just killing it. And it was rad. So super fun, but super random. I would love to do something like that again. Like those covers, like there's never going to be that time where you have like dudes from so many different bands, like playing together and doing random covers. It was super cool.
Yeah.
I asked about the year because I was just curious if you were like younger, but that wasn't that long ago. So you weren't like a young
I was
pup.
old, man. Yeah, no, I was old, dragging my ass around Europe. It's funny though, yeah, because like and like Joey Belladonna was there, and like John and Matt from Shadows Fall did it. So me and Joey had ringers where John knew all the Anthrax stuff to begin with. I had 2 guys from Shadows Fall like there doing it. So like we were a little more prepared. Whereas some of the other stuff, there was literally 1 day of rehearsal for all that stuff. So everyone learned their stuff at home, but like, so, going up there and trying to do like some of, like some Sepultura material or whatever it is, like, without practicing more than once was pretty intense.
Jesus.
So it was pretty hectic, but like, dude, these guys, everyone was such sick musicians that everyone pulled it off. It was pretty rad.
Just get a teleprompter like Vince Neil.
Yeah, exactly.
and the imperfections are kind of part of what makes a live show great anyway, right? I mean, you're going to find something fun about that.
Totally, man. Like that was what was cool, is there was definitely a kind of like fly by the seat of your pants vibe to it. And I think the audience kind of got to go along for that ride, because the energy was definitely like there, because it was just like, we don't know what the hell's going to happen either,
Yeah. Brian, we really appreciate you coming back tonight.
Dude, my pleasure, man. Always good to talk to you guys. And I'm stoked you guys are going to be in Worcester. That's awesome, man. Definitely come track me down and say what's up.
We will be looking for you.
Awesome, man. I'll be the guy with the dreads.
Yeah, exactly. See you, man.
Thanks,
awesome,
Brian.
man. Take care, guys.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
Man, talk about 2 legends in the game who both spent a lot of time regionally in the Northeast, kind of where we grew up, just to hear different perspectives. Shannon, from that time period of the original Tattoo the Earth, we got a bunch of stories of Brian kind of growing up in New England, and both in this episode, and we had him back in 94. And man, those dudes, open invite to come on this podcast anytime in the future. Stories for days. We didn't even scratch the surface, right?
Right, man. I mean, they were awesome. It's been really fun to talk about these older day stuff, and then what they're doing today even. And to hear stories. We've got some extra stories from both of these interviews that are going to come out down the road. So don't sleep on what we have here, but also some, nerdery stuff that may not fit the Tattoo the Earth world that we've also recorded with these guys coming at you here in a couple of weeks too.
Yeah, I love it. There's a regional element I'm very proud of. I think there's music fans in New England that are very rabid, and the metal scene in New England's always been very much a proponent of, the live music scene and just metal in general. So there's a reason I think we get the content we get and the relationships that we're building here at the Podioslave podcast and this whole series with Tattoo the Earth. So the legacy will continue, and we will see you next week.
Peace, Potheads.
Peace.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Podioslave. We are at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podioslave Podcast. YouTube, Podioslave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.